I've been doing truth research for a long time. So I'm going to be sharing with you today little bits of different parts of reset. So we've got the old world with Tartaria, we've got the petrified giants, and into sort of like mythical creatures as well, you know, but our real history basically, you know, our real knowledge that's being kept from us and obviously hidden. And because we've had, you know, thousands of years added onto our timeline. So I'm here to show you basically the real and the truth from everything, guys. So yeah, sit back, relax, and let me just, so I'm just showing you some images here that I created myself. So on the left side here, we have basically Tartaria and what the world, the reset for world fairs and for the different architecture and what comes in Tartaria. Because if you look at Tartaria in the old world, you know, there's so many different parts to it. So today I'm going to be sharing some stuff to do with the architecture, the ether, the free energy, and basically how long it's been here for. And because they say that, you know, these buildings were created in the hundreds, in the 1700s, and this beautiful architecture, you know, you're talking amazing advanced technology as well. You know, they said they all created within the space of 100 years in the 1800s, and we know that it was way before that. You can't really create something. You can't really make this advanced architecture with a horse and buggy and a hammer and chisel. So this is what I'm going to be speaking to you about today. But if you look on the right side there, you know, this is in New York. So apparently, in the space of, I'd say, just after 1776, I guess, with the global reset change, they said that this is when it was built, and apparently there was no civilizations in the Americas. So from when before Columbus went over there, you know, they were all primitive and they wasn't living properly. And we know that's not true, because you're not going to be able to, in the space of, you know, when America started becoming civilized, I guess, if you want to say what they say anyway, they said that there was no civilization within the Americas, and they flew these buildings up. They created these buildings, you know, these cities in America within the space of like 100 years. You know, you're talking, apparently it went from Greenland, you know, from nothing at all, forests, you know, into seeing these like advanced like cities, these technical grid cities with advanced architecture. And I'm basically here to just explain some stuff to you and show you that, you know, the truth about the world fairs, the truth about the architecture, and basically it's the truth about everything, because we've been lied to. And we've had advanced civilizations here, you know, many times, and we've been reset so many times, and it wasn't just one reset. You know, there were so many. So that's what I'm here to explain today. So again, Chicago's World's Fair, obviously within 1893, they said that all of this architecture in the Chicago's World's Fair in 1893 was put up in the space of 2 years. Okay, this is the scale of Chicago's World's Fair, how big it was. So this is from the right south side of Chicago's World Fairs. You're looking in from the entrance side here. So if you go all the way back over to the Ferris wheel there, that's how big Chicago's World Fair was, okay? And they said that it was put up within the space of 2 years, again, as we all know, with plasterboard, okay? So all of this amazing architecture you see here was put up with plasterboard and cardboard in the space of 2 years, just for the World's Fair to be taken down again and destroyed. Okay, and that's the narrative they give us. You know, that's the narrative they give us for all of these World's Fairs, that this amazing architecture was all put up, you know, just for these World's Fairs. But then again, we see the same architecture all around the world. You know, it's not just America, it's not just Europe, you know, it's everywhere. There's the same architecture around the world, and it makes you think, why is the architecture all around the world? Why, you know, it comes from different civilizations and different history, and why have we got the same buildings, you know, and why are these buildings put up in the World's Fair, and why were they taken down again? And in Chicago as well, you can still find 2 buildings left in Chicago now that are still standing from the World's Fair, and they tell us that what? So the rest were cardboard, the rest were plasterboard, and then this building still standing that they made out of some different material then that's still standing, you know, and there's questions to be answered here, and they just don't give us the right answers, because being taught a fake narrative, and that's what they tell us. But on the right side here, so if you're looking at it, so, you know, before Chicago was you know, named Chicago, it was called Shalaga. There's old maps of Shalaga being there before Chicago was ever made, and it was a civilization. It was an advanced civilization. And that's not to say that this architecture was already there. Okay, yes, there's photos and different photos of the construction of these World's Fairs. You know, that's what everybody always says when I'm trying to push this truth and this knowledge out there. Everyone always says, well, I've seen You know, I've seen pictures of it getting constructed, and it's like, well, it's Photoshop. Like there was manipulation, there was photo manipulation back then. You know, and none of the photos anyway constructing these World's Fairs look legit to me. They're different images of the buildings. You know, when they show these construction images, they're not the same as the buildings you see within the World's Fairs, and they look, you know, dark, and they're all whited out, and there's no people there, and they just look fake. You know, it's a narrative. They give you photos. Oh, you know, we've built these. You know, there's the proof for it. And there's a few images online. And it's just like, no, they don't look nothing like this. These magnificent architecture you see. You can't really see it. But down in the bottom right corner there, there's an old letter. There's a treaty from Chicago World's Fair. And it says in there, Shalaga. It says, once known as Shalaga. There's evidence if you want to find it. You know, they tell us straight to our faces, but we just don't dig and we just don't look for the truth. So again, here in Chicago's World's Fair, you know, these pillars, do they look temporary to you? Because to me, they do not look temporary. And, you know, they're gigantic. Again, we say, was the old world, was Tartaria, was it inhabited by giants as well as people? Was it inhabited by different beings? We've just been reset so well that we forgot that we lived with these beings and these giants. You know, these massive pillars, these big doors are not going to get built and created for no reason if everybody's small, like surely. And that's something to be, you know, to think about, because, like, you know, you don't see massive doors and things getting built these days because we're all small. We build doors the same size as us, surely. So why they could have just done it to be extravagant and you know, show big architecture and show how advanced they were. But I don't think so. This was for big beings these were built for, and they weren't temporary. To me, they don't look temporary. You know, just as an insight, as an eye opener, guys, 27 million visitors in Chicago's World Fair. 27 million visitors. That's how big Chicago's World's Fair alone was. Was it a fair or was it a civilization already? Was it a city? You know, was this fair a city? They didn't want the architecture there anymore. They didn't want it there. They didn't want us to see what the previous civilization looked like, so they got rid of it. They said it was a fair, it was a fake narrative, just so they could take it down again. And we've totally forgot about it. Easiest way, and that's why it was a worldwide plan. They did it in every country and in every place, you know, just to get rid of this action was from the same civilization. So this is a list of some of the World's Fairs. Don't get me wrong, because before 1850 there was previous World's Fairs, and after 1950 there's been World's Fairs too. But these are the major ones. All of these World's Fairs, you know, had the same architecture. They were all different countries, different places, America, the UK, all parts of Europe, but they all had the same architecture. They all had the same, you know, advanced buildings, but they were all at different times and they were all destroyed, all taken down, you know, and for no reason. You know, let's just house these extravagant fairs and just get rid of the buildings and not put them in use anymore. And, you know, to me is pointless and is stupid, really, you know. And I just feel like, you know, it's the narrative that they give us. The narratives that they give us all the time. And that's, it's obvious to me. And if you look over to the right side here, so these are all the great fires of the world. Okay, so, you know, you've got the Great Fire of, you know, in a Great Fire of London, you know, in 1600s, and then it goes all the way down. So there's fires in Canada, there's fires in America, there's fires in the UK that burned down entire cities, okay, and killed off entire towns and cities, burns to the ground, you know, and no one questions this. It's the same as I brought this in because it's quite a good sort of point to make when you're saying the destroying of architecture, the destroying of the World Fairs, and then the destroying of whole cities and towns, resets. You know, the same thing comes to mind all the time. We're constantly being reset, and this is what the narrative, the agenda is of the world. We're constantly being reset. They're constantly wiping out architecture. They're constantly wiping out civilizations, and you know they're constantly changing our history, and we don't see it within our faces, hidden in plain sight as always. And that's what they've done. But if you actually take a step back and actually think what I'm saying now, they burned down entire cities in front of us, and it just happened just again, you know, in Los Angeles, like the Los Angeles fires. Do you know what I mean? Like for smart cities, of course, but this is what's happening. They're reprogramming us for another reset, just so we can all become digitalized, you know, with no money, and we can be controlled more than ever. It's happening already in Japan, China, and that's what they're doing, you know. So it's the great fires, and more are coming. So yeah, thank you. So this is an image, popular image going around online. I think you all probably seen it, but it was my image I created probably about a year ago now. So it shows old world Chicago from 1920, and then it goes down to 2024. So it shows obviously not much of a change. But the reason why I show this is because this is what I'm saying, you know, like the architecture is always been there in 1920, and look how advanced the architecture was. It looks like, you know, a volume of frequencies, you know what I'm saying? Because that's what it was. These were grid lines that support each other through energy. You know, they made like that for no reason. They're just like circuit boards, you know, that all together create volume of energy that don't get used anymore, of course, because we don't know how to connect into that energy anymore. But they did, you know, and they've been hiding it from us. And so, you know, and on top of there, of course, ether and docking ships and all that. But, you know, it's just an eye-opener to see that, you know, you just look at these buildings now, and then you can look all in the back on the 2024 pic, modern buildings built around old world architecture. We just don't question it. We just look at it and we just think, oh, you know, or whatever. And no, like it's advanced technology, you know. And so again, a Nashville temporary pyramid for the World Fair. So, you know, pyramid, you know, frequency, technology, old world technology. Right there in the time, look, you know, it lights up, showing that technology again, that electric. You know, in 1897, look how advanced that is. You know, look how amazing that is. And you know, I swear, when I was in school, I didn't know that in 1897 it was like that. You know, we just been told that we didn't have no technology, we wasn't advanced, and we always were, and show it right to our faces, and we just choose to ignore it. We just choose to ignore it. But you know, and that's what they did as well. They brought a lot of different cultures and civilizations into these world fairs. And I'm not saying that that wasn't temporary, because some buildings they did put it in around just to sort of like play with our minds, and sort of shuffle the thing into, you know. But most of them were, you know, not temporary. Yeah. So again, just to show you some stuff from the World's Fair. So you know, this was from Paris World's Fair. I left it. And again, with plasterboard and cardboard, apparently, you know, built to be temporary. And again, you see the water in the front. So, you know, there was always water in these canals and these World's Fairs, you know, because it's a sign of energy, it's a sign of free energy. That, you know, that's how you created, that's how you can create electric, you know, through the energy of the water when it runs. It's the same as any wave, the same as water. Wind, you can create energy, free energy through any of the elements. And you'll always see that there's always water around these World's Fairs or these buildings, you know, canals and water, because they're all connected. They're all connected through this energy, these energy points, and that's what it was there for. And you know, how can you create these massive canals and these rivers that were in the World's Fairs, all for no reason, to be temporary? Let's just get rid of the rivers, let's just get rid of the ponds and the massive canals that were there. Let's just get rid of them. And it don't make sense, does it? And again, you know, inside these buildings, you know, beautiful architecture that doesn't look temporary to me. Massive ceilings, again, built for. I'm not saying that we don't build massive ceilings these days, but not in some way. Of course, skyscrapers are going to have big ceilings. They're big buildings. You have to. But with these certain buildings, some things just look extra for me that doesn't need to be done unless we were you know, side by side with giants, I guess, and really tall people. You know. It's crazy, you know, it's obvious. So again, just to show you some images, you know, like I was saying about the canals and the water, you know, this all temporary just for the World's Fairs. It's like looking at an image, you know, that comes from the south of France or you know, somewhere that you could go and on holiday where, you know, when it's not temporary, it's not fake. You know, you're not going to expect to go to a place and find full rivers and boat rides and stuff, you know, just to be made for something that was good. It's like a play park, and we're going to get rid of it now. And you know, and again, it's the electric sidewalk there in Paris World's Fair. You know, they had it's a known thing. It's really, you know, one of the biggest advanced technology things that people can look at these days. You can type it on Google, type in Paris World's Fair, you know, moving sidewalk. When they had a moving sidewalk in the World's Fair, and it was fully motorized, and you know, on a free motor energy. Yeah, this was, you know, in the 1800s, and they were having moving sidewalks. Like, went from Victorian times, apparently living primitive, you know, with no light bulbs and stuff, into having moving sidewalks in the space of like 50 years. You know, it's like, when did that happen? But you know, like, they reset so well, so we forgot. More things we've seen and be a part of and being alive, you know. You know, because the reset did start in 1776, but there's been many resets after that. You know, there was a big one again in the 1800s, the middle of it, and another one at the end of the 1900s, and then we're doing it right now. There's big resets and there's little resets, you know, to condition us gradually. Shortly after, you know, the 1800s, that's when everybody fully really did forget the true purpose of what we were before the 1700s. Thank you. So again, just the big pillars again, you know, just looks very necessary to me. And we see these big pillars all around the world. They say most of them from the Roman Empire and stuff, but you know, how much history can we believe when we've been reset so well and we forgot, and we've had 1,000 years added to our timeline? How much history can we believe in when they say about these Roman empires? You know, and when we get taught in school, they've taught us about these, you know, the Roman Empire and certain things to do with history, because they want to condition us and you know, make us believe in a certain narrative. They didn't tell us the true narrative of where these buildings and this architecture come from. You know, it's easy to, you know, to change a whole civilization within 100 years. if you get rid of all the books, or you know, and you get rid of all the civilizations and the people, and you throw them into the mental homes, do you know what I'm saying? And you change them, rewrite the history. It's not that hard because it's been done many times and it's proven now, you know, here. And yeah, and if you go to the next slide, I'll show you. So in the Chicago one, they had so you know, so and that she was called the Golden Lady. So she still stands in Chicago today. Actually, you can go and see her right now if you wanted to. So yeah, and she was made out of solid gold. So if you think that, you know, they are building this Chicago Soul Fair to be temporary, and made out of solid gold, and the rest to be torn down again, you know, if it was that much of a fair where it wasn't real, then why does this architecture, why does the Golden Lady still stand? What are they trying to do? They're just trying to show in our faces like, haha, you know, look at this, but everything else is gone. But this is just a reminder that we did it, you know, and we put it in your face. And sorry guys if you can hear something outside, I live right next to a busy road, so sorry about that. But yeah, you know, it's something to think about all the time, because this you know, this architecture still stands today, and they got rid of it. Thank you. If you don't mind going to the next slide. Thank you. Yeah, so again, Franco-British acquisition. So this was in the UK, this World's Fair. Again, you know, apparently these were put up within the space of like a year and then torn down again. And British Franco exhibition was one of the biggest World's Fair as well. And, you know, apparently it was White City within London. It was a place called White City, and it was an advanced city that was already there. And they just made it out to be the narrative again, that it was just from a World's Fair. And, you know, White City wasn't a World's Fair, it was a White City. And it was already there from the old world civilization, and they just played it off to be the World's Fair again, just like they did with Shalaga, just like they did with these old world cities. They made them out to be World's Fairs, and they got rid of them. And if you look like on the side, these buildings, they're old buildings. You know, you can see the marks on top of that one down on the left. It's on the roof. It's wear and tear. And this building was taken when they've just put this up. You know, and it's not there anymore because they took it down straight away. But they're not made out of cardboard, are they? You know, it's impossible to that. And you got to understand, this is from a bird's eye view. So these buildings are massive, and you can see the people down in the front there. They're tiny. They're tiny compared to this massive city. You know, and it goes bigger. It goes beyond. Huge. You know. Thank you. And again, this is from British Franco exhibition. Look how amazing that place is. It's like a dream. You know, it's something you don't see today. You know, it's something that you sort of think of like a different, old world, and a futuristic old world. Something that, you know, you would read in books and stuff that you don't think about anymore. And this is what the old world looked like. This is what the World's Fair in White City apparently looked like, and this was only made for a fair to be taken down again. And, you know, it's beautiful, and it's advanced, and it's amazing, and it's obviously from the old world, and it's from an ancient civilization. And it's sad that they've lied to us, and they told us that this was just for, you know, an exhibition, when no, you know, it's from an ancient civilization, well, from an old civilization, and that didn't, you know, it wasn't here that long ago, only like 200 years ago. So yeah, again, that's the size of the British exhibition in 1908. Does it look temporary to you? And again, you can see all the technology on the top, all the etheric dome resonators, you know, and all the energy grids of everything. It's a whole energy grid. So this is something I want to share with everybody now. So to me, I had a little like insight into something, and something clicked in my mind a while ago. And so, you know, it's a big title there, the Rothschild destroyed Tartaria. When I looked into some things, it's not just one family that destroyed Tartaria. I'd say there's a few, you know, the Rockefellers, the Rothschilds. But when I was looking into stuff, so it says here in 1769, the Rothschild family traced their origins back to the 15th century Frankfurt. That's when they became big, though, in 1769. So that's when they were becoming sort of prominent within the New World Order, and you know, they sort of made their mark. 1776, 1769, you know, when they become powerful. And it was the same time as the reset. And it made me look into things quite deeply, really. And a lot of things made sense to me, you know. Don't mind the next slide. So if you look here, it has the same timeline. The Rothschilds have the same timeline as the Tartarian reset. So if you look up here, so in the 1700s, to begin with, you know, Mayer Rothschild joined their brothers in the family trading business. As you know, the Rothschilds own all banks in the world, and own most companies as well, to be honest. And, you know, in the branch of the system, the branch of the New World Order, it's hot dogs. And, you know, and they started becoming dominant within the 1700s in the time of the reset. So it makes me wonder, was that because an old civilization got reset and, you know, wasn't there anymore, and they took over? You know, did they destroy it? Did they have a part to play in the takeover of the old world to make the New World Order? you know, and the timeline is very similar to the resets from 1776 up until now is very, very similar. And again, you know, the Great Reset of 1776 on the side, you know, with the mud floods and stuff, and it was all the same time. They wanted to destroy the civilization. They wanted to get rid of the architecture. So, you know, they did it. And again, with like harp and stuff and weather manipulation today, they had weather manipulation back then too. Don't think they didn't, you know. And most of these things, most of these catastrophes and these events happen man-made, you know, man-made weapons, man-made weather manipulation, man-made, you know, things happening, catastrophes happening, you know, all for the reset, all to follow their narrative, all for an agenda to make us scared, and to make us forget about our old world history and our old world knowledge, you know. Thank you. So again, Rothschilds, so they loaned money to the Catholic Church in 1832, and look how big the Catholic Church has been, you know. And this is one of the biggest reasons why, you know, our civilization is being reset is the whole reason why we forgot our true history, because the church took over, you know, and all of our old world knowledge just left, you know, went out the window. And that's why today, you know, there's a certain way you can sort of take religion or take, you know, certain texts out of the Bible, out of the Book of Enoch, or, you know, if you know where to look, you can take good information and good knowledge out of it. But most of it's being rewritten anyway. You know, most of the Bibles and most of the scrolls and scriptures are being rewritten, or they've been burnt down, or they've been lost, you know. So it's hard. But and it says there, you know, they loaned money to the Catholic Church. What was that for? £4.7 billion it would be now in 2023, but it was the sum of 400 in 1832. So wow, that's how much money they loaned to them. What was it for? Was it for a new plan? Did they want to plan something? Did they start working together, you know, to take over and start leading all together? These families, bloodline, this tree of the New World Order, they all come together. This religion, if it's, you know, companies, if it's to do with banking, if it's to do with government, they're all under the same umbrella. They're all under the same tree. They all speak to each other, you know, and they've all been sucking the blood out of all of our energies, you know, for hundreds of years. I don't even think they're human, to be honest, I'm saying. Well, yeah. So look, in 1813 to 1815, Rothschild was single-handedly financing the British wars. What I'm saying is basically the Rothschilds were instigators for the British war, you know, and sold all of the assets, all of the guns, everything to most of the world. They funded the war, you know. If you want to make a better place, if you are like a family that you know, well, then why are you funding wars? And that's what they all do, you know. So it's all a game. It's a cleansing. Reset is a cleansing, and that's what they did. And you know, very, very powerful family. Thank you. So again, so if you know about the Oddfellows, again, you know, I was speaking about it before just then about the orphan trains, you know, and about the mental asylums and stuff, you know, and how they sort of reset our civilizations. So again, the Rothschilds were connected to the Oddfellows, and the Oddfellows were in charge of all the orphanages and all of the mental asylum, and they were a private secret society that was established in the 1800s. So if you look at that again, why are the Oddfellows a secret society like that? Why are they in charge of, you know, babies and kids back in the day, and why were they in charge of mental asylums? You know, why were these secret societies in charge of these things? You know, because they were a blood-sucking private group that basically want to control us and reset us, and that's what it was all made for. They were just a pawn in the game, isn't they? Do you know what I mean? And the Rothschilds are connected to the Oddfellows, so you know, there's no coincidence there, is it? They're all connected. They all speak, and they all make their own, you know, fraternities. They all make their own orders and brotherhoods, but they're all connected as one. And that's the Rothschilds' abode right there. You know, that's where they live, and that screams old world to me. You know, where they're a Tartarian family. You know, that wanted their time to take over, and they knew exactly how to do it, and they made a plan. And they succeeded, I guess, along with other families that were a part of that bloodline. And if you look at the architecture there, it screams Tartaria, it screams etheric energy on the top. And that's just one of many that they have, and they all look old world. They're all, you know, Tartarian as well. So it's not just a coincidence to me. It's you know, it's obvious, and it's all a plan. So another one, I want to show you Crystal Palace. This was located in Hyde Park in London. So this was another one. Again, a World's Fair, Crystal Palace. So then, but it was actually there. So it did stay there. Crystal Palace was there up until I believe the end of 1900. Crystal Palace did stand, so it wasn't destroyed. And it was a true palace, you know. It was massive, it was crazy, and then since then has been destroyed. But again, old world architecture, and just want to show you some, you know, so the narrative and how they're all so similar but different at the same time, and how they all come from the same civilization. So if you don't mind going to the next slide. So again here, so Crystal Palace itself was destroyed in a fire. So again, we're seeing fires pop up all around the world, you know, from before the 1700s up until now. There's been great fires everywhere, and there's been so much architecture destroyed in fires, you know, and that's what they say. If they can destroy something like that, you know, burn it down, and that's what they do, you know, and it says here, the cause of the fire is still unknown, and there was never an official inquiry into who burnt down Crystal Palace itself. You know, is it a coincidence? Is it not? You tell me. No official inquiry. Surely if someone burnt down an entire palace in Hyde Park, there would be an inquiry, and they would want to know who burnt down, you know, this old world building that they would never want to get rid of. You know, that's a tragedy. And it did, it got burnt down, and they never wanted an inquiry into it, did they? Because they know exactly who did it. And yeah, it was only there for one narrative, and it got destroyed because they didn't want us to understand what was going on, and it didn't fit their agenda, you know? So thank you. And again, that's another picture of Crystal Palace after it burned down. And so here, and at the end of it, so the picture before that was what Crystal Palace looked like after it was burned down. And then yeah, thank you. And then, if you don't mind going to the other slide. Thank you. So it says here that in 1940, you know, bombs were dropped on Crystal Palace to basically get rid of the last evidence of it. So even though it was burnt down, it was got rid of, they still dropped bombs on it just to get rid of the last bit of evidence. So let's just get, you know, like that. And that's what they do, really. So it's fires, there's bombs, and then all for a narrative. The same as, you know, in the world wars, there was a massive push, a massive agenda to get rid of all the architecture in Germany, you know, in Europe. It was a massive push to get rid of all the old buildings. Most of them were destroyed, you know. Was that all of a part of a narrative? They weren't just coming over here bombing buildings and architecture for no reason, you know. And that's what Crystal Palace today looks like now. Sad, yeah, you know, very sad. And that's the only thing that stands is that lion there and with graffiti on the side and Hyde Park today, and that's the remains of Crystal Palace. You know, the remnants of the old world that you can still see. So little things now. I just want to just dabble into some other things now. So here, some of my edits here, some of my content that I've created. So on the side, so we got some old world bells, so frequency energies. In most of these old world buildings and these old world architecture you found, you know, bells that all add into the frequency of the buildings. Okay, so if you look on like the churches of today or the old cathedrals of today, they all have bells, of course, and with these domed resonators on top, all of these pointed buildings, and it connects in with the ether. So if you connect in ether from the atmosphere, from the etheric collecting device on top of the building, it all resonates into the bell. And when the bell rings, it lets off the frequency, okay? And that's why in like old towns and places, like I have them in my hometown, you'll find that all churches and all old world buildings all are in ley lines, okay? And they're all in certain grids to connect frequencies to each other, you know? So you're never going to find one church in the middle of nowhere on its own. It's very, you know, don't really see it much. You might, but you don't really see it much because at one point, what all these bells did and these buildings did, they all connected together to let off frequencies within the place where it was, so we could all harness that for healing, you know, for growth of spirituality, to understand, you know, what we actually are a part of and what our purpose is as vessels and beings here. But you know, the demonic entities that run this realm today have dumbed our frequencies out, and they've got rid of all the bells, and that's why there was a massive push in the World War, you know, and when Hitler rounded up all the bells and destroyed everything, and that's what you can see there, to get rid of all of this energy, this frequency. They didn't want the bells to ring. They didn't want them to ring. You know, they didn't want us to feel that frequency. They didn't want us to feel that energy. And it's very sad. It's what's happened. This is why we're all here, to try and make a change and let everybody know, you know, we were free vessels and we were all connecting as one at one point. Yeah. So with the second slide there, again, it's just showing you that from the world spheres, the lights of it, you know, the electric, the energy of what these world spheres created, you know, in the 1800s, this advanced technology, advanced architecture, right there. That, you know, look at these buildings. They wasn't just architecture. They were technology. They were free energy. They were etheric collecting devices. They were resonators. They were energy grids. They were frequencies. They were vibrations. You know, they wasn't just plain old architecture that got built for no reason. They signified something. They had a reason. They had a purpose. You know, this is why when you look around you now, these buildings look so out of place in the world. They look so out of place. Next to the advanced next to the modern day architecture we have today, because they wasn't from our civilization. You know, they were from a civilization that we don't know about, and we've only just started to understand what they were. And again, here I said on the pic on the right there, that they took the Zeppelins away so people could not explore freely, and That's one of the biggest things, you know, like if we still had Zeppelins laying around today and we had our own personal Zeppelins, for instance, we'd be able to fly anywhere, you know, we'd be able to fly over into the other lands. We'd be able to go to Antarctica if we wanted to. We'd be able to explore freely. So they've taken them away. They made us have passports when you pass a port, when you pass a place, and you have to be told where to go. And they fly you wherever they want to go. They won't go over there, will they? They just come back around, do you know what I mean? And even the pilots are all directed to where we have to go because they can't travel freely. And what the pilots say, I mean, what we're on, from the first-hand people up in the sky, you know? So something to think about. I guess so here, Tartarian architecture was actually free etheric energy device, all connecting as one, just like a motherboard. The energy could be harnessed and used to power cities, heal illnesses, send frequencies to keep us seeing the light. And when I say that, I mean as in, look at that building, look at that, you know, architecture at the top, look at that city up there, and then look down at the motherboard, look down at the frequencies. It's very similar, yeah? Uncanny to me. You know, a motherboard is a city. A motherboard is its own city, you know, gathering frequencies, gathering energy, gathering ether in order to power them. But we just don't use it like that anymore, you know? And that's what these were used for. These cities are built to all connect as one with the resonators on top and the frequency. They were all connected as one at one point, you know? And that's what they were used for. They weren't just built for no reason. They were built all to have a purpose. That's the again, that's just a picture from the World Fair there, just showing the you know, the power of the electric free energy, the power of what it created, you know, in a time where, you know, apparently we were primitive only 50 to 100 years before that. But no, it was a time of free energy, you know, it was a time of resets, I guess. So this is just showing you some domed resonators now from all the buildings around. So all the different types of you know, pointed buildings you can get, dome resonators, printable high buildings. I mean, these are all the ones around the world, the different ones, you know, that create energy, the frequency buildings, that vibrational grids, vibrational architecture, technology, you know, they're not just buildings, it's technology. At one point, they all got used to create free energy. And people, you know, people still don't think ether, you know, is real. It's because it got taken out of the periodic table a long time ago. And it's already been said in this conference, it's already been said, you know, by some of the great speakers before. You know, there was technology, it was. We just forgot about it because we've been reset so well. And to a person that can't see, to a person that this eye is not open, that hasn't woken up yet, you know, we sound so stupid, you know, that's just the building, or because they can never see it. But once you see and you really look at the different points and you really open your mind to it and explore, it's quite obvious and it's quite simple to see. Once you understand it, it all fits into one sort of big agenda, and it's obvious that all of it is real and it's not fake, because it can't just be one thing. If it's one, you know, if they're hiding one thing from us and another thing and this and that, then surely it's all come under one umbrella, and we've been lied to and we forgot. We're all waking up now. It's amazing. Thank you. So this is in Dubai. So this is new. They created this in the early 2000s. So this is in Dubai. Yeah. This is the biggest clock tower, if you want to say, in the world now. Dubai has made it, and it makes you think, doesn't it? What are they trying to gather up there? What are they trying to get? You know, they're not stupid, Dubai, are they? So to me, I feel like they've created this to gather energy, you know, to do something, to test. You know, this is the biggest. If you type on Google, the biggest clock tower in the world. This is the one now, and it's gigantic. It's absolutely huge, and there's a bell up there too, and the bell rings as well. You know, and look at that. You know, look at the lightning striking it, and it's like an old building, isn't it? It's an etheric collecting device, surely, and the bell rings too. And so it's like, do Dubai know something that, you know, we know, and well, most people don't know, but we know. Do they know something, and are they trying to harness old world technology? You know, with the biggest clock towers ever being created. You know, it just looks too suspicious to me. Like, it looks too technology, like they're trying to harness something. And yeah, so I thought that was just something I wanted to share with you, because I thought that was pretty cool. So again, this is just some images of, you know, ether, and in the periodic table, and then again on the side here, you know, energy generators, I mean, direct domed resonators, you know what I mean, that have to be produced through mercury into copper, and they're the essential elements in order to produce ether or harness ether in order to create free energy. It all needs to be done within a certain way. But then again, you know, I've been inside bell towers, and I've been inside these dome resonators inside the, you know, and what they've done is, obviously over the years, they've just got rid of everything inside the dome resonator. So they've ripped everything out, and that's what's happened on most of these buildings. They still have the bells and stuff, but they don't have all of the you know, the materials and the technology, that whatever was inside them, those resins, you won't find anything like that anymore. They've all been redone. The technology, the architecture was all being ripped out and all put back in again. You know what I mean? And that's what you see as well on all these old world buildings that still stand today. Even though they're still standing, the insides and a lot of parts have been changed, and also the dates on the front. You know, when it says like, you know, as we know, like J899 or whatever, 1899, but the J got changed to a 1. They changed all the dates on all these buildings to make us think that they were built in the 1800s, and you know they were. So thank you. So I'm going to go into petrification now, guys. So, you know, you could say it's not really a part of Tartaria, but this is truth, and I want to get it out there. And this resets, and because we've been reset so many times, and it's not just been one reset, there's been many resets, you know, to house new civilizations. So I just want to get into to petrified beings, petrified cities, petrified buildings and stuff, and just say some things about it, really, because I think it's really big. I think it's opening up more these days, and I think people are really opening their eyes to these petrified beings and that are around us, that used to live. And I think it's a good time to share my knowledge, I guess. So yeah, so these are just some content I put together. So obviously we've got, I'm going to start with the beings, and I'm going to move on to trees and stuff as well. But yeah, so again, it's just some mixture of petrified buildings, petrified giants, petrified beings, you know, and then in the middle there we've got petrified trees, ancient giant trees, you know, that lived one time, that were beings themselves. And you know, even though the demonic entity that runs around today, even though they cut them down, or you could say that the Most High cut them down, you know, for whatever reason you think that they cut them down, they did. They got cut down, they got petrified, and is spoken about in Genesis, is spoken about in Daniel, is spoken about in texts. If you open up to the biblical text, if you open up to the Book of Enoch, if you open up to the scriptures and the holy tablets and stuff, you will find information in there, and you don't take it as, oh, religion is the devil, or religion is a bad frequency, or, you know, you need to know where to look within these scriptures and these texts, and you need to know where to look, because it's, you know, these were beings that in written out in these books, they were entities that did live, you know, and yeah, it's been changed, yeah, things have been taken out of it, but you can find real knowledge within these scriptures and texts. And the one on the end there, you know, that's a statue, and you know, it's been said that statues and old world statues are petrified beings, you know, turned to stone with a blink of an eye. And it's even shown in movies and stuff, you know, when people get petrified and, you know, hidden in plain sight again. And just showing you there with the circle, you know, looks like blood to me. It looks like a bone coming out of the foot, you know. And yeah, it's quite mad, to be fair, because it looks like a very like emotional, very deep picture, that is, you know. And if it is a human being petrified, then wow, yeah, thank you. So again, this is a very you know, popular pick online, if you want to say. Well, if you look at it first glance, you know, again, what is it? Is it just a mount? Is it just a side of a cliff? You know, is it just grass? Is it just something that looks like a face? And you know, that's what everyone says. And to me, it's obvious. You know, it's not photoshopped. It's not rigged, because this has been going around for a long time. And many pictures I'll show you that. And I don't know, I don't post AI and stuff. I find the real ones, and I find ones that have been going around for a long time, and it's quite easy to see. But some of the ones I show you now, things you might call out and say that they're not real, but it's okay. It's okay if you can't see yet, and it's okay if you can't open up to the truth at the moment. It's okay, and you'll see at your time. You know, when it's right for you to see, your time will come. Because to the ones that understand this now, we can see, you know, that these were ancient beings that did live, and didn't happen that long ago, to be honest. You know, our timelines will be mixed up, and they tell us that things happened millions of years ago, just so we think that our history is so long, that we've come so forward and so far with our advancements, and we haven't, you know what I mean? We've been reset so many times, we forgot most of our history, and most of these things they tell us about in these books and that didn't happen that long ago, literally 2,000 years ago. I mean, and not even that, even closer, not millions of years ago. Not millions of years old. There was no way. But be in the ground there, would they, for the millions of years? You find them by there, just archaeologists, you're not going to see them bones anymore. They're not going to be there, are they? So no, they were just, it wasn't that long ago when these dragons lived, you know? Thank you. Again, you know, you could say it just looks like a rock, like a skull. You could say it just looks like a skull, but of these petrified beings, these petrified giants, you know, around, for us just to say it looks like a face. You know, look how many are coming out now. You know, I understand it if there was just one or two, but there's not. You know, there's thousands of these petrified giants, these beings that are petrified, that are turned to stone, that are spread around our realm everywhere, and it's coming out now, and it's amazing that we're exposing these entities that once lived. It's like they want us to see, you know, like out the, you know, Satan's little secrets that their time is moving through. You know, the parasites are around, you know, because and we are exposing what's happening so we can move forward, and hopefully your children can live in a world that, you know what I mean? Because we're meant to live. This is still, that's not going to that's not going to style of a rock bed, you know. I go down the hill, and that's the side there, a peaceful, you know, peaceful, petrified. And this is amazing. This is one of my favorite ones ever. So people screenshot the chat, guys, and they can, you know, look at them if you want to look Google search. I'm trying to find where these rocks are, but if you go on Google Lens stuff, you can find out they're all real images. You can, you know, screenshot it and go and find the locations yourself. They're all real images. And, you know, and again, look at that. He would have been what? 500 foot, expected into the sky. You know, the Watcher's sons, they come down to Earth and they, you know, they vanish, petrified and flood, and they reset. They've done it. Genesis and spoke knock, and it's not, you know, these beings, they just, you know, these beings, they're right there. The graveyards. This world is their graveyard. This world in the hill. You know, that's called dragons. One at the top. You know, don't get me wrong. You could say, okay, it looks like a dragon, but over years, of course, things gonna. Sorry, Elizabeth, do you want me going back? Sorry, going. But for me, that's a being's eye, creature's eye. That's not just a rock formation. It's not a mining rock formation. It'll look like a sanctified giant dragon body of some sort of being, like a bear, polar bear type to me. And again, people can say they look like it, just look like it, but then look how many we're finding. Look how many creatures and beings we're finding around the world that look like they're meant to look like, you know? I don't look human and have faces like this, you know, for no reason. It's because I am a being. I look like this. If I didn't look, I wouldn't look like this. If they, you know, if these creatures, if it didn't look like this, they wouldn't look like this. I wouldn't look like a bird. I wouldn't look like a dragon. I wouldn't look like a reptilian being. It wouldn't, would it? It don't. It looks like what it is because it is what it is. You know. It was a rush job. They couldn't get rid of everything. You know, same with the World Fair, same with the architect, same with these petrified beings. They couldn't get rid of everything. It was impossible. So let's see if they wake up. We can't get rid of it. Let's see if they come around. We have started to come around now, guys. We start to see these things for what they are, and it's amazing. It's a topic of change. So yeah, go on, go over a bit more. Go on. Next one. Yeah, again, here, like, you know, dragon beings, guys. You could look at that as a face, you know, here with the mouth coming down and the nose and the eye, or you can look at it as a face straight on. But to me, it looks like, and if you look up in the top left here, it's scaly skin, you know, it's like scaly skin. So it's like coming down as like a, you know, like a mouth being, or like a dragon being, you know. So it looks what it looks like, doesn't it? You know what I mean? Thank you. So again, we're looking at petrified things, petrified beings, petrified giants, petrified creatures, petrified buildings as well. There was different things petrified. Did they come from the same reset? Did they come from a different reset? But I think it was different types of resets. I think some of them got petrified through some sort of petrification technology, some sort of magnetic force that petrified them, you know. And then there's also the Most High can petrify. So the giants got petrified at different times to these buildings. You got to understand that there's different ways of petrification. There's different resets that happened, and they didn't come all under the same reset, guys. That's where people get confused. You know, these beings, these petrified giant stuff, didn't come under the same belt as Tartaria. It was a long time before that, but all in the same agenda, I guess, but different times of the reset. So you know, building to me, you know, that looks like just like an ancient building. You can see it's two. You can see the lines. You can even see the window grids. You know, you can even see the little piping on the top. It's obvious. Same here, our melted past. So if you look on the left, on the right picture there, in the Grand Canyon, most of the Grand Canyon is like an ancient city. I mean, there's still beings that live there now. You know, it's known about, you know, a retreat for beings and vessels that live here, and they don't get seen, so they can go and live freely underneath in the Grand Canyon. You know, there's more cities and more major civilizations underground than there is on top, guys. So remember that. And yeah, so you know, melted buildings to me. Thank you. So again, melted bridge. You know, apparently it's a natural rock formation. They tell us it is a natural rock formation, and you know, I don't think it is a natural rock formation. It looks just like a bridge. It looks like exactly what it is, you know. And there's loads of these buildings, there's these bridges, these petrified sort of like formations that look like bridges or look like buildings, because they are, surely. They don't just look like it for no reason. Again, look at that. It looks like a massive ancient cathedral type city on the right there, you know. To look at it, you would think it's a remnant of an old building, an old cathedral, and apparently it's just made through through erosion of water and stuff. And it's like, nah, man, like it's 100% of buildings, millions of these all around the world. It's not just one and two. Again, they're there. They look like what they are. And they've been lying to us, guys. And they don't want us to know who lived in these civilizations and who housed these buildings in these cities. They don't want us to know. We're getting there. We're waking up. So, again, the question is, what were most of these ancient rock formations, these old world rock formations, what were they from? Were they melted cities? Were they petrified tree stumps? Because there's a fine line between petrified buildings, melted buildings, petrified trees, and petrified cities. Because people say, every petrified building, or no, every petrified mountain was a building, not a tree. And there's some that are so obvious they were trees, and there's some obvious that they were cities or buildings. Don't get it confused. There was petrified trees, there were ancient giant trees, and there were buildings that have been petrified too. There's different, everyone's like, oh, no, there was no trees. They're all buildings. It's like, no, they were definitely trees. They were definitely ancient trees, but then they were definitely buildings too. Different research, different times, different periods. And that's what people get confused about, and also petrified giants and petrified creatures. A lot of things got turned to stone at the time. Again, on the right there, uncanny to me, just showing it, not saying that the image looked exactly like that, like the architecture there, but just as an example, very similar. And yeah, just to show you an example. Thank you. So we'll go into the trees now, the petrified trees. And it's a big thing online at the moment. The trees have been woken up. People are realizing that there were these massive ancient trees that stretched into the sky, and there's not just one, there's not two, there's not three, there's not hundreds, there's thousands of these trees all around the world. And they get classed as tabletop mountains or mountains, and no one ever really opened up and really looked at this up until probably about 5 years ago. And it's amazing, and we're actually exposing these beings now, because these trees were beings. These trees were living organisms, living things that were way more, advanced, had a way more of a deeper consciousness than we did, that were connected into the higher realm. They were connected into the higher frequencies, and they give their life, you want to say, for us. They knew what was coming, so they did, and they obviously transformed into some type of different being after they sacrificed themselves. So don't feel like they're not helping us still, and don't feel like that they're still not living, because they are. They just give up their vessel to become something else, so the demonic entities just house this realm. But they know that a new time was coming. They know that we were going to get woken up again one day, and they know that we were going to find our change. It just took a long time. But yeah, look, trees, examples. That's a tree stump. That's a mountain. That's a tree stump. That's a mountain. No, they're all trees. They're all tree stumps. If you can see, you can see. To me, it's obvious. Again, examples of trees. The tree of life. There is a tree of life in the Garden of Eden. There is one big main tree. The roots of life. Our vessels are roots that look like roots and that hold it in. And then waterways look like vessels and roots. Everything looks like roots. It's all rooted. We're all connected as one. Trees give off oxygen. The frequencies of life, that make us survive. Without trees, we are nothing. We are a tree. We are a living organism inside ourselves. So, and trees were big at one point, so were we big at one point. We were all big at one point, and we just forgot about it, and we're all connected. So you could say that, these are our life givers. These big trees were our mother, our Tiamat, our energy source, the way we come from, through these frequencies. And just like the film Avatar, when the big tree got cut down, it was their life source. They lived off the tree given the energy to connect into our frequencies when they put the hair through. That's why when you have dreadlocks, you have long hair, that's why it says that it acts like an antenna, to grow your hair out, grow it long, to be earth and grounded to the floor with your hair. It's a frequency port. That's why you shouldn't cut your hair, really, because it stops your frequencies from coming. The naturalness of your hair acts like a frequency. That's why when you roll a balloon on your hair, it creates energy, and it creates some static electricity, because we're all electric. We're electric. We're a ball of energy. We're a source of energy, and we connect just like the trees did, and we connect just like any energy source would. And we got ether inside us, and we are an ether energy source as well. And that's why we could connect to the buildings, and that's why bells and buildings could heal us if we knew how to connect into that frequency. But our brains don't hold that advances anymore, because we've just been dumbed out, and we've just been put onto a fake frequency, which is the third frequency. Thank you. So again, you can see the tree lines on the pic, and I just put a stump there just to show you, ancient trees of life. These are the life source. These are the life givers. And again, this tree, this is huge. And look at the tree lines on the mountain there. You can see the tree lines. You can see the fragment where it's being cut or where it's being, you know, sliced up, and or lathe technology, whatever it was some sort of ancient technology, it was some sort of things, it was the most whatever it was, however it happened, and you can see the natural tree lines. And the funny thing is, under all of these mountains, under all of these, you know, all around these tree stumps, there's massive rock cave caverns full of crystals, full of diamonds, and massive, you know, caverns and caves full of energy and roots, and where the roots were, you know, going for ages. And then you look at tunnels, and you look at underground, and you look at all these things and all these cases, and then you think, where did they come from? You know, because it's where these roots were, they stretched out. Obviously, of course, you've got underground cities and stuff, and you've got things from where they built on top of different things, just, you know, keep built on top of each other, you know, to get rid of the last thing. Of course, we have that, and we have major underground cities and things that all connect, but there's also tree roots, and there's also tree lines. And why is there crystals underneath these mountains if they don't come from trees? Thank you. So again, you know, spot the difference on there. You've got a tree stump, and you've got a mountain on the side. And see, I'm showing these different examples of trees, different types of the stumps, and then different types of the mountains to show you that, you know, it's not just a standard tabletop mountain that looks like a tree stump that's been cut. You know, there's mountains like this that look like jagged edge trees that have just been ripped off and stuff. Do you know what I mean? It's not just these clean mountains that just look like tree stumps because they're tabletops and that. There's these different types of mountains, these different types of tree stumps that all come from different trees, but were ancient and giant and being taken down in different ways. So, you know, it's not just one, two, same as a giant, same as these petrified beings. There's not just one type. There's not just, you know, there's some that are 500 foot, and there was some who were only 10 foot. There's some who were only 20 foot, you know. There's some trees that were huge, spread into the skies, and there was some who were just, you know, a little bit big. Different types. So it's obvious, you know. It's not just one example. There's many examples in our faces. So again, just examples of trees. So, you know, again, you would look at that probably first glance on the left, and you probably think it's not a tree. But if you look with it with your eyes, of course it is. And probably have another tree coming up to the side too. But, you know, you can see the stumps and the roots come into one line down the other, and it all comes down into it just like the tree on the right is. It's all part of a root grid, and it's obviously just been over years, over centuries. It's sort of gone more small as you can't see the actual tree build up the tree. But to me, that's easier. That is one tree going up, and there's one on the side too. No, thank you. Some examples. So obviously, you know, Devil's Tower, probably most famous sort of ancient giant tree stump in the world, where it all started from, really, where people sort of like opening their eyes up to ancient giant trees. And just an example again of how it looks with a normal tree stump, and that hole in the middle, you know, getting the hollowing of the trees. So you see on the tree stumps, the hollowing of the trees right there, you know. You can see the natural root line going up the side too. Apparently as well, with Devil's Tower underneath, there is crystals, there is cavern, there's cave cavern underneath Devil's Tower too. So, you know, and people always say, well, why haven't they like studied these? Why haven't they like, you know, made it known about these ancient giant trees? Why haven't people done the research? Why are they hiding it from us? Well, it's obvious. It's why they hide it from everything. They don't want us to know about these ancient giant trees. They don't want us to know about these petrified giants. We would know that our whole history is a lie. You know, we would know that everything we got taught in schools is a lie. We would know that. So it would be worldwide chaos, and it's starting to happen now. But we're doing it through a time of wake up. We're doing it through a time of guidance. We're not doing it through a time of carnage. You know, and that's how we need to do it. We need to prepare the ones that are not awoke to become awoke. Otherwise, it's going to cause carnage. So we've got here. Do you know what I mean? So we got the Blemmyes. Do you know what I mean? So the Blemmyes were an ancient tribe that once lived, and they had faces within their stomachs and the top of the shoulders here into their bellies, and along with other beings that lived as well, that were probably a part of the reset of the cloning. So when they were trying to find the perfect human in order to make a new civilization to control and suck their lives from us, like how they always do it. In the middle of these cloning, these times of advancement, when they were trying to make these things, these genetics, these beings, you know, all around the world, and they were documented with, you know, Alexander the Great. He documented these, as you can see, and it says they killed off the ones who did not fit their agenda and turned them into myths and stories, and that's what they did. They made all of the dragons. You can go over now. Thank you. So, like, again, they made all of these beings, you know, they put them in stories. They put them in the Disney stories. They put them into myths and stories. They made us act like dragons and fairies and gnomes, and these sort of creatures and beings and giants were all mythical. They were all fairy tales made up by stories, but they weren't. They were actually our true history, and they were actually where we come from, you know. And sorry, go over. And we all lived side by side. If you look there, from Alexander the Great, you know, he documented meetings meeting these Blemoids. He documented meeting these creatures, these beings that could speak, these dragons, these phoenixes, these griffins, these beings, these dog-headed people, rabbit people. He met them. And again, here you have the hairy beings, you know, just like Bigfoot and stuff, if you want to say. These ginger, hairy beings that lived side by side with us, that were worshipped at one point, you know, and they all got killed off over the time because they did not fit our agenda. It's the same as the mermaids. It's the same with the dragons. They killed them off, you know. It was a big push with the British Empire, you know, in the 1600s and stuff, to kill off all of the last remaining giants and stuff up in all around the world, to kill off all the mermaids. That's why mermaids are on old world maps, because they were real. Go into the water and you'll get killed by a mermaid. That's what they knew if you were staying around on the ship. You knew you'd have to watch out for the sirens. They're not mermaids though, are they? They're sirens, you know, evil, you know what I mean? And they don't like us because they know how we live, and they know what our system's like, and they don't want to be a part of it. And that's why they hide from us now. That's why all these beings and stuff, they all hide underground in these places. You know, I probably sound crazy when I say that, you know, I don't just believe in fairies. I don't just believe in these things, you know, because they're real. There's different subspecies to fairies and gnomes and dwarfs and giants. There's subspecies to them. There's different races. They all have battles underground. Do you know what I mean? Like, it's not unheard of. If you find the right books and find our research, you're going to look it up, like, and they don't like us because, you know, we're part of the New World Order, and they're waiting for us to wake up too, because we haven't woken up. Do you know what I mean? We're part of the demonic realm at the moment. We're not reaching that higher frequency, that higher fifth, that hopefully we see in our lifetime. But all we can do is make a change. So
it's £20.
Yeah, all good. Yeah, I'm fine. I just want to say thank you to everyone obviously listening to me as well. If you want to follow me, I'm on Facebook, Leviticus MDP, or my sort of label name is Monday Prophet. I'll comment on my YouTube channel as well. On the comments, you can find me as Monday Prophet. But yeah, guys, thank you so much, everybody, for waking up and listening. Yeah, and stay blessed, guys. And hope you all feel that frequency and energy today, guys. Hope you have a lovely rest of your weekend.